Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. And tonight we are doing Are You Missing Calls? This is an evening webinar, Thursday, 16th of June, and we're focusing on phone call tracking as a tool for vet practices. Now, as a starting point, for those of you who haven't joined us before, I just want to go through a few tips on how to use the webinar service. This is a live webinar, of course. This is me talking from Melbourne to you guys across Australia and New Zealand. And if you would like to ask a question, I would really encourage it. And the best way to do it is to actually type a message into the little box there, little GoToWebinar box, and it'll pop up on my screen, and I'll answer them as best I can during the webinar. If I can't answer them during the webinar for various reasons, I'll get back to you later. You can always email me as well. Now, tonight's webinar is going to be relatively quick, which is good. A nice quick webinar is the way to go. And we'll be finishing before 8:30. However, if we have questions that go longer, I'm happy to stay longer and answer those. All right, I've got a few examples to show you tonight. So here's our agenda for tonight. A little bit of intro about PetPack and why we're here. A lot of you here tonight may not be familiar with what we do. Of course, a lot of you who use our service already or know about us. A bit of a summary of what this is all about. Are you missing any calls? What is call tracking? What vets have done with the results? And then getting call tracking set up with PetPack. And please feel free to use your phones and talk during the presentation. So a bit about PetPack, and just before we get to that, I just want to check there's maybe a question here. Just if you could type in that you can hear okay, that would be fantastic. And I know one of our guests attending has a problem with the audio. Actually, you can hear, I think. Yep, all right, that's good. Just type in there if you can hear, guys. That would be really, that you can hear okay, that would be fantastic. Thank you. All right, moving on. Thanks for that, guys. Back to the presentation. So a bit about PetPack, which is the company that I founded. It was created in 2001, which is quite a few years ago now. There's been a lot of technological changes since then, but with 4 guiding principles. They are to teach pet owners about how to look after their animals better. Secondly, to reinforce the role that vets play as the leaders in animal healthcare. To highlight the impact of animals on human happiness. And lastly, to make a useful connection between pets and a healthier planet. So in the time that we've been running PetPack, we've maintained those principles, and the work we do today is consistent with that. Something that's relevant to tonight is VetLab, and this is how we discovered the missing calls. The VetLab is a test environment we created where we test and measure improvements to our products, which are online marketing products. And the way we do it is we've got 4 practices around Australia who started with us, where they allow us to test and change the products that they're using, the PetPack products. So, for instance, the website, we make changes to websites and measure the improvements or lack of improvements with those changes. And we've made some significant improvements which are now available to all our clients. So VetLab is really a test environment, and allows us to say with confidence that a change that we make to your website or your email service or Facebook service will make a difference. And we're the only organisation in the veterinary space that does testing for online tools. And we are the only organisation who measures, which is the testing, but also then improves the performance. So a couple of examples of performance that have come out of the VetLab tests. Clinic A grew website traffic and phone calls 300% in 18 months. Now, it's not that uncommon for practices to get that sort of growth. So that's an example of going from 235 visitors a month and 65 calls. This is visitors to their website, to 614 visitors a month and 189 calls, which is transformative for a practice. Clinic B grew the traffic by 216% and calls by 436% in 4 years. So you've got an example there would be 386 visitors a month to the website and 57 calls, growing to 836 visitors a month and 249 calls. Here are some summary results last 12 months. We generated $6 million in additional client spend at vet clinics that used our email newsletter service. PetFact Facebook added 8,500 new fans to vet Facebook pages. We sent over 1.2 million email newsletters for vets in Australia and New Zealand. And PetFact websites generated an additional 26,400 new client calls. So that's not just phone calls, that's new client calls. All right, so here's a summary of what we are talking about tonight. In the pathway to getting a new client, the online tools are increasingly playing a role. So it's important to understand that word of mouth and drive-by are still your main drivers for new clients, but almost all of those people will go online in order to get to you. So it might be they want to confirm their thoughts about the place, make a decision about whether they want to come, they want to find out a bit more information, or they may just want to get the phone number. Now, there are several steps along the path where calls to a clinic are missed. Let's break that down to 3 main areas. First of all, the clinic can't be found online. Now, 90% of clinics can't be found in their surrounding suburbs, which is remarkable, but it's a definite problem or issue. What that means is if I'm a prospective client of yours and I'm standing in the adjacent suburb to where the practice is, I won't see the practice when I'm searching. So the chance of that person then choosing you as a practice is low. The flip side to that is you can make yourself visible. And that's what we do for PetFact clients, and it's very effective. It's part of the reason why we can grow the call so strongly. The second part where you miss a call is that the website itself fails to convince the person to call. So a person actually makes it to the website, but they decide for some reason they don't want to ring. And we call this web conversion. Just to give you an idea, the average vet clinic website in Australia is converting at somewhere between 5 and 10%. And through our vet lab process, we're able to improve that. We're able to grow it to 20%. So it's double, conservatively double it, by changing the way the website looks and feels. And thirdly, the person then does call, so they get through, they find the clinic and they actually decide to ring from the website. They actually call, but the phone call is not answered, or if it is, an appointment is not made. So just to reiterate that, the person actually does call the clinic, but the phone call is not effective, meaning it's not answered, or if it is answered, an appointment is not made. So tonight we're actually going to look at the first part, which is the phone call is not answered. Now, summarising what we've found from doing this process with practices where we've actually been monitoring their calls, clinics are missing about 10% of the calls, full stop. It's a significant loss. So if you receive 100 calls a day, obviously, that's 10 calls missed. Well, what's the value of that? Well, from our other studies, about 25% of those calls it's reasonable to expect in your clinic they'll be prospective new clients. Of course, if you're a new practice, it's going to be a lot higher, and some practices might be lower. But 25% for a reasonably active urban practice will be prospective new clients. So if each of those clients is worth $500 a year to the practice, then every day that you're missing those 10 calls, you're missing about $1,000 every day. So you can add that up to a lot of money over the course of the year. So let's just put this in perspective about where this fits in the life cycle of clients. And this is a diagram we use to describe where PetFact fits in. So if we start on the left-hand side, which is sort of the growing new business side, this is generating new business. So you've got websites, Facebook, and other online search tools, generating new calls coming in. And then when they get to the practice, then you've got enhancing extra business by using the website, Facebook, email, newsletter, services, and reminders. But if we go to the middle here, this is the interface where the missed call action happens. So the phone call actually comes in, but the call is missed, and so the person never gets to make an appointment, and the clinic doesn't get them as a client, and they don't become an ongoing client. So we're talking about this central area here. Any questions at this point? Just checking our call list. No? All right, good. Yes, that is a good question. I will get to how we actually track these calls in a minute. Thank you for that. All right, so back to the presentation. And by the way, the presentation is recorded, so you will get the chance to see a recording. All right, so what is call tracking? So call tracking is actually a way to determine whether or not you're missing these calls. Now, I've asked practices over the years about their calls. You know, like for instance, you might say to someone, you know, how do your clients find you, or you know, how many calls do you think you're missing, for instance? And it's very hard for them to know, and often a lot of these stats are taken by practices by actually jotting it down on paper at the front desk, getting the front desk guys to write down some bit of data about the incoming person, where they came from, or whatever it is. And those sorts of recording methods are give you an indication of what's going on, but they're unreliable. Certainly if you want to be very specific about what's going on. So what we did in our vet lab clinics, we actually stumbled across the missed call component, which we're talking about today, because we're actually wanting to track the number of calls that were coming. And to do that, we actually added a sophisticated piece of software to the websites. So it's part of the PetVac website service that actually tracks the calls. Now, so the way it operates is it actually uses a different phone number, and that's an important point, because the call has to be diverted through a computer in order to get all the tracking details from it before it actually lands up on your front desk. From the consumer, the caller's point of view, they don't know any difference, and from the staff member's point of view, they don't know any difference, but the data is collected along the way. And then the software itself records the source phone number, when the call was made, whether it was answered, and how long the call was for. That's sort of the core information. And I'm going to show you a report in a minute. So we were doing that because this was part of our tracking system to show our 4 test clinics what the call volumes were. It was really important when we were making a change to a website to see whether it made a difference, an improvement, or it reduced the number of phone calls I'm getting. So we needed a watertight call tracking service, which is where this came from. But as part of that process, because you can see when the phone calls are being not answered, it was pretty obvious pretty quickly that clinics were missing calls. It's for those of you who just joined us, just to reiterate, from these tests, from our clients' direct experience, we estimate that most practices will be missing about 10% of their calls, full stop. And you can work out what that's worth to you. It's significant. So I'm going to show you a report now that shows you what this call tracking service report looks like. And so what happens is you set up the software in the back end of the website, and then it spits out or produces a report once a month, which we analyse and share with the practice. So I'm just going to escape out of this for a minute and have a look at now I'll see whether I can bring this up to full screen size. I think you can probably read that okay. Just let me know if you can't see it, all right? So let's go along the top here. This is a real report. It's quite recent. You can see here you've got the customer code, which is it indicates which clinic we're talking about. Phone call, where the phone's actually the phone call that's coming in, the phone number that's being used to bring the calls in. the call, the phone number that's actually being answered on. So this is your tracking number, and this will be the clinic number. The date, the time of the call, how long did the call go for, and now this is the caller ID, and you can see some of this is obscured for, in some cases for security reasons, but as part of the reporting process, you can actually unlock all that and see the calls. Now it tells you what the status of the calls is. So this first one you can see is busy, and whether it was from a mobile or not, and what area. And there's also some location information here, which I'm not showing tonight, which you would be able to see. Now, let's go through this first one here. You can see on 29th of the 4th at 3:30, there was a call that went for 0 time, and the call status was busy. So that's actually a missed call, and it's because the line was engaged. And you can see here, someone's tried multiple times to ring through, and it's been busy the whole time. So that's not a very good look, is it? And let's go down a bit further. Here you go. So on the 1st of the 5th here, you've got a call 5 o'clock in the afternoon, went for 9 seconds. And part of the assessment is working out whether or not a call of 9 seconds is reasonable in order to speak to someone. And in this case, the call was complete, so there was obviously some conversation went on there. Probably not enough time to make a booking. Next day, 8:30 in the morning, 23 seconds, complete. So you get the idea. Anyway, from this, what we then do, and what the clinics can do, is they can see the number of calls they're missing, and that's where you do your calculations. So very, very useful. Scrolling down, you can see, call duration is quite interesting. The other thing that's come out of this that's important is time of day. So because you've got time of day, and then when they're being missed, you can see whether or not you've got a problem with scheduling or loads on the front desk. So going back to the Prezzo, so what have vets done with the data? So this data that the clinics have got, practice managers or owners, has been pretty useful, dramatic, and of course, as you would know, it's not every vet who, one, is going to do the tracking, and two, going to do something about it. But the ones that do, I'm going to share with you their responses. So first of all, reorganising the front desk has been a significant response, meaning a lot of people do it. So for instance, they find that like it might be Monday mornings where they're getting smashed, discharges, admissions, and lots of calls from the weekend. They're just missing tons of calls. So I wrote about this in the email this week. There was one of our clients who went from really not liking the front desk, they were slacking off, to realising that they were just massively under the pump. And so that's particularly at certain times of the day or certain times of the week. Another clinic employed a full-time receptionist, so they actually invested in another computer, another phone, and another person to handle the calls coming in, because they found that the missed calls were happening not just at one point, so it wasn't just a matter of putting another person on for a short time, but for putting them on throughout the week. Change their view of the front desk staff. I already mentioned that. I think it gives really good insights as to what's actually going on. And so as a result, better understanding the dynamics of the front desk. So it's about when are those calls being missed, how many and when are those calls being missed. And finally, they've increased their appointments because they've actually started taking these calls in. And as I said earlier, which I'll repeat again, it's about 10% of calls are being missed. They're getting more business, and get an extra couple of new clients a day out of that, and it's worth a lot of money to the practice. Any questions about that at this stage? Just checking where we've got people jotting those messages. And by the way, I will be sending out the recording of this afterwards. It'll come out to you automatically. No more from you guys? No, that's good. Let's have a look now at a practice that's used call tracking very effectively. This is one of our test practices, and their experience with call tracking has been significant. So, like a lot of our practices, they use call tracking as part of their training processes. So tonight we're particularly interested in missed calls and what you can do about it, but also you can use call tracking to activate voice recording, which is a really powerful tool when you're training your front desk guys. And, you know, that's another opportunity. All right, back to presentation, and we're almost finished. We're quite early tonight, which is really good. So call tracking with PetPack. So we can do this call tracking for you. It's what we have done. It's where we've got our data from. It's available. It's part of the PetPack website service. That website I showed you previously is the PetPack website. What we will do is we'll set the tracking system up on all your online assets. So it's not just your website. Your Google assets, and you may not be using any Google assets currently, but Google My Business and AdWords are important for tracking calls because they're all going to be generating calls for you. We do a monthly top level analysis and report, so you get that data I was showing you with an interpretation. And you can use the service for as long as you like. So you can use it for 3 months and get a sense of what's going on, and you can stop it, because you can turn the phone number tracking system on and off at will, or you can do it ongoing. And you know, we have practices that do both. And I mentioned before, you've got the option to add call recording for training purposes. What does it cost? With the PetPack website, the cost is $250 to set it up, and then you've got a monthly cost of $150 plus call charges. Now, call charges depend on how busy you are, but it's going to be about $50 a month. So I don't think we've had a practice go over $100 a month, and it might be a bit less than 50, but I think 50 is a pretty reasonable amount. So if you're interested in doing that, give us a call. So thanks for coming. I'm not sure if anyone's going to have a cup of tea now, but nice little, you know, relaxing sort of icon. And you can talk to our office and speak to Danny, who's our national sales manager, or you can talk to me. I know a lot of you guys, you can email me directly. And if you are going to be at the APM conference, the first weekend of July coming up, I'd love to see you. Let me know. Well, it'd be good to have a chat. And otherwise, I'll see you around the traps. All right. Any further questions before we go? Thanks for coming, everyone. By the way, I know a bunch of you came in later on, but that's okay. If you've got any questions, just whip them through to me, or listen to the recording, or you might have got it all, which is great. There's a couple of late questions which I'm happy to answer because we've still got time, which is great. Now, Peter Harris has said, will this work if your phone system answers calls automatically with an on-hold message? Absolutely. So when I say absolutely, Peter, I don't think we've had a problem with that in the past, and I think I know what you mean. So the short answer would be it'll be fine, and we just need to check your system before we went and committed to that. And Peter's asked a good question, if I can read this out. What happens after you switch off the call tracking number, but people have already recorded this number in the mobile phones and try to use it again in the future? Very good question. Now, we've been doing this for long enough to know that the problems are minimal. So you're right, people have been storing their phone number in their phones, and there's a couple of things you can do. Most practices just turn off their call tracking number. It's not available anymore, and the clients just go back to ringing the normal clinic because it's on the website straight away. There's clients are so comfortable with searching online for the clinic's phone number, expecting the practice to be able to dial them straight off the website, that it's not a problem. Now, if you were concerned about it, and it's probably not a bad idea, you can keep running the call tracking number for some time, say a month after you stop it being visible. So it's still live, which means if someone dials it, they're still going to come through. And you can either have a recorded message on that saying, please call the other number, or you can just tell them when they, sorry, you don't know, you've just, look, basically we've done that a couple of times, and we found that the call volumes just dissipated really quickly. It didn't become an issue. That helps. Any other questions, guys? Well, does that help, Peter? All right, good. All right, guys, if you want any more information or interested in using the service, let me know. And I think that was useful anyway for you. Just highlighting the fact that you will probably be missing calls and what you can do about it. All right, great to speak to you. Thanks for joining me tonight, and I really enjoyed giving it. All right, see you soon. Bye.